paid my dues time after time. I've done my sentence, but committed no crime.
Thank you for the heart me. I'll start real quickly. Thank you for the popular. Because it is 2 hours long, 2 sections. That is section 4 and 5. Section 4 is 58 minutes and section 5 is 101.
Section 4 of Report on the Investigation into Russian Interference in the 2016 presidential election. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Angelique G. Campbell, May 2019. Report on the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election by Robert Mueller. Section 4. Report Section 3. Russian hacking and dumping operations. Beginning in March 2016, units of the Russian Federation's main intelligence directorate of the General Staff, GRU, hacked the computers and email accounts of organizations, employees, and volunteers supporting the Clinton campaign, including the email account of campaign chairman John Podesta. Starting in April 2016, the GRU hacked into the computer networks of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, DCCC, and the Democratic National Committee, DNC. The GRU targeted hundreds of email accounts used by Clinton campaign employees, advisors, and volunteers. In total, the GRU stole hundreds of thousands of documents from the compromised email accounts and networks. The GRU later released stolen Clinton campaign and DNC documents through online personas, DC Leaks, and Gutenberg 2.0, and later through the organization WikiLeaks. The release of the documents was designed and timed to interfere with the 2016 U.S. presidential election and undermine the Clinton campaign. Subsection A. GRU hacking directed at the Clinton campaign. Subsection 1. GRU units target the Clinton campaign. 2 military units of the GRU carried out the computer intrusions into the Clinton campaign, DNC, and DCCC. Military units 26165 and 74455. Military Unit 26165 is a GRU cyber unit dedicated to targeting military, political, governmental, and non-governmental organizations outside of Russia, including in the United States. The unit was subdivided into departments with different specialities. One department, for example, developed specialized malicious software, malware, while another department conducted large-scale spear phishing campaigns, redaction, or investigative technique. Military Unit 74455 is a related GRU unit with multiple departments that engaged in cyber operations. Unit 74455 assisted in the release of documents stolen by Unit 26165, the promotion of those releases, and the publication of anti-Clinton content on social media accounts operated by the GRU. Officers from Unit 74455 separately hacked computers belonging to state boards of elections, secretaries of state, and U.S. companies that supplied software and other technology related to the administration of U.S. elections. Beginning in mid-March 2016, Unit 26165 had primary responsibility for hacking the DCCC and DNC, as well as email accounts of individuals affiliated with the Clinton campaign. Unit 26165 used redaction investigative technique. To learn about redaction investigative technique, different Democratic websites, including Democrats.org, HillaryClinton.com, DNC.org, DCCC.org, 2 instances of redaction or investigative technique, began before the GRU had obtained any credentials or gained access to these networks, indicating that the later DCCC and DNC intrusions were not crimes of opportunity, but rather the result of targeting. GRU officers also sent hundreds of spear phishing emails to the work and personal email accounts of Clinton campaign employees and volunteers. Between March 10 and March 15, 2016, Unit 26165 appears to have sent approximately 90 spear phishing emails to email advisors, and a DNC employee. GRU officers stole tens of thousands of emails from spear phishing victims, including various campaign-related communications. Subsection 2. Intrusions into the DCCC and DNC networks. Subsection A. Initial access. By no later than April 12, 2016, the GRU had gained access to the DCCC computer network using the credentials stolen from a DCCC employee who had been successfully spearphished the week before. Over the ensuing weeks, the GRU traversed the network, identifying different computers connected to the DCCC network. By stealing network access credentials along the way, including those of IT administrators with unrestricted access to the system, the GRU compromised approximately 29 different computers on the DCCC network. Approximately 6 days after first hacking into the DCCC network on April 18, 2016, GRU officers gained access to the DNC network via a virtual private network VPN connection between the DCCC and DNC networks. Between April 18, 2016 and June 8, 2016, Unit 26165 compromised more than 30 computers on the DNC network, including the DNC mail server and shared file server. Subsection B. Implementation of malware on DCCC and DNC networks. Unit 26165 implanted on the DCCC and DNC networks two types of customized malware, known as X-Agent and X-Tunnel, Mimikatz, a credential harvesting tool, and RAR Execute, a tool used in these intrusions to compile and compress materials for exfiltration. X-Agent was a multi-function hacking tool that allowed Unit 26165 to log keystrokes, take screenshots, and gather other data about infected computers, such as file directories and operating systems. X-Tunnel was a hacking tool that created an encrypted connection between the victim DCCC/DNC computers and GRU-controlled computers outside the DCCC and DNC networks that was capable of large-scale data transfers. GRU officers then used X-Tunnel to exfiltrate stolen data from the victim computers. To operate X-Agent and X-Tunnel on the DCCC and DNC networks, Unit 26165 officers set up a group of computers outside those networks to communicate with the implanted malware. The first set of GRU-controlled computers, known by the GRU as middle servers, sent and received messages to and from malware on the DNC/DCCC networks. The middle servers, in turn, relayed messages to a second set of GRU-controlled computers, labeled internally by the GRU as an AMS panel. The AMS panel, redaction for investigative technique, served as a nerve center through which GRU officers monitored and directed the malware's operations on the DNC/DCCC networks. The AMX panel used to control X-Agent during the DCCC and DNC intrusions was housed on a leased computer located in redacted for investigative technique, Arizona. The remainder of page 39 is redacted for investigative technique. The Arizona-based AMS panel also stored thousands of files containing key logging sessions captured through X-Agent. These sessions were captured as GRU officers monitored DCCC and DNC employees' work on infected computers regularly between April 2016 and June 2016. Data captured in these key logging sessions included passwords, internal communications between employees, banking information, and sensitive personal information. Subsection C. Theft of documents from DNC and DCCC networks. Officers from Unit 26165 stole thousands of documents from the DCCC and DNC networks, including significant amounts of data pertaining to the 2016 U.S. federal elections. Stolen documents included internal strategy documents, fundraising data, opposition research, and emails from the work inboxes of DNC employees. The GRU began stealing DCCC data shortly after it gained access to the network. On April 14, 2016, approximately 3 days after the initial intrusion, GRU officers downloaded appears to have compressed and exfiltrated over 70 gigabytes of data from this file server. The GRU also stole documents from the DNC network shortly after gaining access. On April 22, 2016, the GRU copied files from the DNC network to GRU-controlled computers. Stolen documents included the DNC's opposition research into candidate Trump. Between approximately May 25, 2016 and June 1, 2016, GRU officers accessed the DNC's mail server from a GRU computer leased inside the United States. During these connections, the remainder of page 40 is redacted for our investigative technique. Unit 26165 officers appear to have stolen thousands of emails and attachments, which was later released by WikiLeaks in July 2016. Subsection B. Dissemination of the hacked materials. The GRU's operations extended beyond stealing materials and included releasing documents stolen from the Clinton campaign and its supporters. The GRU carried out the anonymous release through two fictitious online personas that it created, DC Leaks and Guccifer 2.0, and later through the organization WikiLeaks. Subsection 1. DC Leaks. The GRU began planning the releases at least as early as April 19, 2016, when Unit 26165 registered the domain dcleaks.com for a service that anonymized the registrant. Unit 26165 paid for the registration using a pool of Bitcoin that it had mined. The dcleaks.com landing page pointed to different tranches of stolen documents arranged by victim or subject matter. Other dcleaks.com pages contained indexes of the stolen emails that were being released, bearing the sender, recipient, and date of the email. To control access and the timing of releases, pages were sometimes password protected for a period of time and later made unrestricted to the public. Starting in June 2016, the GRU posted stolen documents onto the website dcleaks.com, including documents stolen from a number of individuals associated with the Clinton campaign. These documents appear to have originated from personal email accounts, in particular Google and Microsoft accounts, rather than the DNC and DCCC computer networks. DC Leaks victims included an advisor to the Clinton campaign, a former DNC employee and Clinton campaign employee, and 4 other campaign volunteers. The GRU released through dcleaks.com thousands of documents, including personal identifying and financial information, internal correspondence related to the Clinton campaign and prior political jobs, and fundraising files and information. GRU officers operated a Facebook page under the DC Leaks moniker, which they primarily used to promote releases of materials. The Facebook page was administered for a small number of pre-existing GRU-controlled Facebook accounts. GRU officers also used the DC Leaks Facebook account, the Twitter account @DCLeaks_, and the email account DCLeaksProject@gmail.com to communicate privately with reporters and other U.S. persons. GRU officers using the DC Leaks persona gave certain reporters early access to archives of leaked files by sending them links and passwords to pages from the dcleaks.com website that had not yet become public. For example, on July 14, 2016, GRU officers operating under the DC Leaks persona sent a link and password for a non-public DC Leaks webpage to a U.S. reporter via the Facebook account. Similarly, on September 14, 2016, GRU officers sent reporters Twitter direct messages from @DCLeaks_ with a password to another non-public part of the dcleaks.com website. The dcleaks.com website remained operational and public until March 2017. Subsection 2. Guccifer 2.0. On June 14, 2016, the DNC and its cyber response team announced the breach of the DNC network and suspected theft of DNC documents. In the statements, the cyber response team alleged that Russian state-sponsored actors, which they refer to as Fancy Bear, were responsible for the breach. Apparently in response to this announcement, on June 15, 2016, GRU officers using the persona Guccifer 2.0 created a WordPress blog. In the hours leading up to the launch of that WordPress blog, GRU officers logged into a Moscow-based server used and managed by Unit 74455 and searched for a number of specific words and phrases in English, including some 100 sheets, Illuminati, and worldwide known. Approximately 2 hours after the last of those searches, Guccifer 2.0 published its first post, attributing the DNC server hack to a lone Romanian hacker and using several of the unique English words and phrases that the GRU officers had searched for that day. That same day, June 15, 2016, the GRU also used the Guccifer 2.0 WordPress blog to begin releasing to the public documents stolen from the DNC and DCCC computer networks. The Guccifer 2.0 persona ultimately released thousands of documents stolen from the DNC and DCCC in a series of blog posts between June 15, 2016 and October 18, 2016. Released documents included opposition research performed by the DNC, including a memorandum analyzing potential criticisms of candidate Trump, internal policy documents, such as recommendations on how to address politically sensitive issues, analysis of specific congressional races, and fundraising documents. Releases were organized around thematic issues, such as specific states, for example, Florida and Pennsylvania, that were perceived as competitive in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Beginning in late June 2016, the GRU also used the Guccifer 2.0 persona to release documents directly to reporters and other interested individuals. Specifically, on June 27, 2016, Guccifer 2.0 sent an email to the news outlet The Smoking Gun, offering to provide, quote, exclusive access to some leaked emails linked to Hillary Clinton's staff, end quote. The GRU later sent the reporter a password and link to a locked portion of the DCLeaks.com website that contained an archive of emails stolen by Unit 26165 from a Clinton campaign volunteer in March 2016. That the Guccifer 2.0 persona provided reporters access to a restricted portion of the DC Leaks website tends to indicate that both personas were operated by the same or a closely related group of people. The GRU continued its release efforts through Guccifer 2.0 into August 2016. For example, on August 15, 2016, the Guccifer 2.0 persona sent a candidate for the U.S. Congress documents related to the candidate's opponent. On August 22, 2016, the Guccifer 2.0 persona transferred approximately 2.5 gigabytes of Florida-related data stolen from the DCCC to a U.S. blogger covering Florida politics. On August 22, 2016, the Guccifer 2.0 persona sent a U.S. reporter documents stolen from the DCCC pertaining to the Black Lives Matter movement. The GRU was also in contact through the Guccifer 2.0 Twitter account with Redaction, Harm to Ongoing Matter, with a former Trump campaign member, Redaction, Harm to Ongoing Matter. In early 2016, Redaction, Harm to Ongoing Matter, Twitter suspension of Guccifer 2.0 Twitter account. After it was reinstated, GRU officers posing as Guccifer 2.0 wrote, Redaction, Harm to Ongoing Matter, via private message. Quote, thank you for writing back. Did you find anything interesting in the docs I posted? End quote. On August 17, 2016, the GRU added, quote, please tell me if I can help you anyhow. It would be a great pleasure to me. End quote. On September 9, 2016, the GRU, again posing as Guccifer 2.0, referred to a stolen DCCC document posted online and asked, quote, what do you think of the info on the turnout model for the Democrats' entire presidential campaign? End quote. Redaction for Harm to Ongoing Matter responded, quote, pretty standard, end quote. The investigator did not identify evidence of other communications between Redaction for Harm to Ongoing Matter and Guccifer 2.0. Subsection 3. Use of WikiLeaks. In order to expand its interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election, the GRU units transferred many of the documents they stole from the DNC and the chairman of the Clinton campaign to WikiLeaks. GRU officers used both DC Leaks and Guccifer 2.0 personas to communicate with WikiLeaks through Twitter private messaging and through encrypted channels, including possibly through WikiLeaks' private communication system. Subsection A. WikiLeaks WikiLeaks expressed opposition toward the Clinton campaign. WikiLeaks, and particularly its founder, Julian Assange, privately expressed opposition to candidate Clinton well before the first release of stolen documents. In November 2015, Assange wrote to other members and associates of WikiLeaks that, quote, "We believe it would be much better for GOP to win. Dems plus media plus liberals would then form a bloc to rein in its worst qualities. With Hillary in charge, GOP will be pushing for her worst qualities. Dems plus media plus neoliberals will be mute. She's a bright, well-connected, sadistic sociopath." End quote. Footnote 156. On January 19, 2015, Assange also wrote that, quote, "GOP will generate a lot of opposition, including through dumb moves. Hillary will do the same thing, but co-opt the liberal opposition and the GOP opposition. Hence, Hillary has greater freedom to start wars than the GOP and has the will to do so." End footnote. In March 2016, WikiLeaks released a searchable archive of approximately 30,000 Clinton emails that had been obtained through Freedom of Information Act litigation. While designing the archive, one WikiLeaks member explained the reason for building the archive to another associate. Quote, "We want this repository to become the place to search for background on Hillary's plotting at the State Department during 2009 to 2013. Firstly, because it's useful and it will annoy Hillary, but secondly, because we want to be seen as a resource player in the U.S. election, because it may encourage people to send us even more important leaks." End quote. Section B. WikiLeaks' first contact with Guccifer 2.0 and DC Leaks. Shortly after the GRU's first release of stolen documents through DCLeaks.com in June 2016, GRU officers also used the DC Leaks persona to contact WikiLeaks about possible coordination in the future release of stolen emails. On June 14, 2016, @DCLeaks_ sent a direct message to @WikiLeaks noting, quote, "You announced your organization was preparing to publish more Hillary emails. We are ready to support you. We have some sensitive information too, in particular her financial documents. Let's do it together. What do you think about publishing our information at the same moment? Thank you." End quote. Redaction for investigative technique. Around the same time, WikiLeaks initiated communications with the GRU persona, Guccifer 2.0, shortly after it was used to release documents stolen from the DNC. On June 22, 2016, 7 days after Guccifer 2.0's first release of stolen DNC documents, WikiLeaks used Twitter's direct message function to contact the Guccifer 2.0 Twitter account and suggest that Guccifer 2.0, quote, "send any new materials stolen from the DNC here for us to review, and it will have a much higher impact than what you are doing." End quote. On July 6, 2016, WikiLeaks again contacted Guccifer 2.0 through Twitter's private messaging function, writing, quote, "If you have anything Hillary related, we want it in the next 2 days, preferably because the DNC is approaching and she will solidify party supporters behind her after." End quote. The Guccifer 2.0 persona responded, quote, "Okay, I see." End quote. WikiLeaks also explained, quote, "We think Trump has only a 25% chance of winning against Hillary, so conflict between Bernie and Hillary is interesting." End quote. Subsection C. The GRU's transfer of stolen materials to WikiLeaks. Both the GRU and WikiLeaks sought to hide their communications, which has limited the office's ability to collect all of the communications between them. Thus, although it is clear that the stolen DNC and Podesta documents were transferred from GRU to WikiLeaks, redaction, investigative technique, the office was able to identify when the GRU, operating through its personas, Guccifer 2.0 and DC Leaks, transferred some of the stolen documents to WikiLeaks through online archives set up by the GRU. Assange had access to the internet from the Ecuadorian embassy in London, England. Redaction, investigative technique. On July 14, 2016, GRU officers used a Guccifer 2.0 email account to send WikiLeaks an email bearing the subject, Big Archive, and the message, "I've no attempt." The email contained an encrypted attachment with the name, quote, "WK DNC link 1.text.gpg or GNU private card." Using the Guccifer 2.0 Twitter account, GRU officers sent WikiLeaks an encrypted file and instructions on how to open it. On July documents this week. On July 22nd, 2016, WikiLeaks released over 20,000 emails and other documents stolen from the DNC computer networks. The Democratic National Convention began 3 days later. Similar communications occurred between WikiLeaks and the GRU operator persona DC Leaks. On September 15th, 2016, at DC Leaks wrote to at WikiLeaks, quote, "Hi there, I'm from DC Leaks. How could we discuss some submission-related issues? I'm trying to reach out to you via your secure chat, but getting no response. I've got something that might interest you. You won't be disappointed, I promise." End quote. The WikiLeaks account responded, "Hi there," without further elaboration. The at DC Leaks _account did not respond immediately. The same day, the Twitter account at _2 sent at DC Leaks _ a direct message, which is the known first contact between the personas. During subsequent communications, Guccifer 2.0 persona informed DC Leaks that WikiLeaks was trying to contact DC Leaks and arrange for a way to speak through encrypted emails. An analysis of the metadata collected from the WikiLeaks site revealed that the stolen Podesta emails showed a creation date of September 19, 2016. Based on information about Assange's computer and its possible operating system, this date may be when the GRU staged the stolen Podesta emails for transfer to WikiLeaks, as the GRU had previously done in July 2016 for the DNC emails. The WikiLeaks site also released PDFs and other documents taken from Podesta that were attachments to emails in his account. These documents had a creation date of October 2nd, 2016, which appears to be the date the attachments were separately staged by WikiLeaks on its site. Beginning on September 20th, 2016, WikiLeaks and DC Leaks resumed communications in a brief exchange. On September 22nd, 2016, a DC Leaks email account, dcleaksproject@gmail.com, sent an email to WikiLeaks account with the subject "Submission" and the message "Hi from DC Leaks." The email contained a PGP encrypted with the file name wiki_mail.text.gpg, redaction, investigative technique. The email, however, bears a number of similarities to the July 14th, 2016 email, in which GRU officers used the Guccifer 2.0 persona to give WikiLeaks access to the archive of DNC files. On September 22nd, 2016, the same day of DC Leaks' email to WikiLeaks, the Twitter account DC Leaks sent a single message to WikiLeaks with a string of characters, redaction, to ongoing matter. The office cannot rule out that stolen documents were transferred to WikiLeaks through intermediaries who visited during the summer of 2016. For example, Mueller Report identified Andrew Mueller as a WikiLeaks associate who may have assisted with the transfer of these stolen documents to WikiLeaks. Redaction, investigative technique. Redaction, investigative technique. On October 7th, 2016, WikiLeaks released the first emails stolen from the Podesta email account. In total, WikiLeaks released 33 branches of stolen emails between October 7th, 2016 and November 7th, 2016. The releases included private speeches given by Clinton, internal communications between Podesta and other high-ranking members of the Clinton campaign, and correspondence related to the Clinton Foundation. In total, WikiLeaks released over 50,000 documents stolen from Podesta's personal email account. The last in-time email released from Podesta's account was dated March 21st, 2016, 2 days after Podesta received a spear phishing email sent by the GRU. Subsection D. WikiLeaks statements dissembling about the source of stolen materials. As reports attributing the DNC and DCCC hacks to the Russian government emerged, WikiLeaks and Assange made several public statements apparently designed to obscure the source of the materials that WikiLeaks was releasing. The file transfer evidence described above and other information uncovered during the investigation discredit WikiLeaks' claims about the source of material that it posted. Beginning in the summer of 2016, Assange and WikiLeaks made a number of statements about Seth Rich, a former DNC staff member who was killed in July 2016. The statements about Rich implied falsely that he had been the source of the stolen DNC emails. On August 9, 2016, the @WikiLeaks Twitter account posted, Quote, announce, WikiLeaks has decided to issue a U.S. $20,000 reward for information leading to conviction for the murder of DNC staffer Seth Rich. Likewise, on August 25, 2016, Assange was asked in an interview, quote, why are you so interested in Seth Rich's killer, end quote, and responded, quote, we're very interested in anything that might be a threat to alleged WikiLeaks sources, end quote. The interviewer responded to Assange's statement by commenting, quote, I know you don't want to reveal your source, but it certainly sounds like you're suggesting a man who leaked information to WikiLeaks was then murdered, end quote. Assange replied, quote, if there's someone who's potentially connected to our publication, and that person has been murdered in suspicious circumstances, it doesn't necessarily mean that the two are connected, but it is a very serious matter. That type of allegation is very serious, and it's taken very seriously by us, end quote. After the U.S. intelligence community publicly announced its assessment that Russia was behind the hacking operation, Assange continued to deny that the Clinton materials released by WikiLeaks had come from Russian hacking. According to media reports, Assange told a U.S. congressman that the DNC hack was an inside job and reported to have physical proof that Russia did not give materials to Assange. Subsection C, additional GRU cyber operations. While releasing the stolen emails and documents through PC leaks, Mueller 2.0 at WikiLeaks, GRU officers continued to target and hack victims linked to the Democratic campaign and eventually to target entities responsible for election administration in several states. Subsection 1, summer and fall 2016 operations targeting Democratic-linked victims. For July 27, 2016, Unit 26165 targeted email accounts connected to candidate Clinton's personal office, redaction, personal privacy. Earlier that day, candidate Trump made public statements that included the following, quote, Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press, end quote. The 30,000 emails were apparently a reference to emails described in media accounts as having been stored on a personal server that candidate Clinton had used while serving as Secretary of State. Within approximately 5 hours of Trump's statement, GRU officers targeted for the first time Clinton's personal office. After candidate Trump's remarks, Unit 26165 created and sent malicious links targeting 15 email accounts at the domain redaction personal privacy, including an email account belonging to Clinton aide redaction personal privacy. The investigation did not find evidence of earlier GRU attempts to compromise accounts hosted on this domain. It is unclear how the GRU was able to identify these email accounts, which were not public. Unit 26165 officers also hacked into a DNC account based on a cloud computing service, redaction, personal privacy. On September 20th, 2016, the GRU began to generate copies of the DNC data using redaction, personal privacy, function designed to allow users to produce backups of databases, referred to redaction, personal privacy, as snapshots. The GRU then stole those snapshots by moving them to redaction, personal privacy account that they controlled. From there, the copies were moved to GRU-controlled computers. The GRU stole approximately 300 gigabytes of data from the DNC cloud-based account. Subsection 2. Intrusions targeting the administration of U.S. elections. In addition to targeting individuals involved in the Clinton campaign, GRU officers also targeted individuals and entities involved in the administration of the elections. Victims included U.S. state and local entities such as state boards of elections, SPOEs, secretaries of state, and county governments, as well as individuals who worked for those entities. The GRU also targeted private technology firms responsible for manufacturing and administering election-related software and hardware, such as voter registration software and electronic polling stations. The GRU continued to target these victims through the elections in November 2016. While the investigation identified evidence that the GRU targeted those individuals and entities, the office did not investigate further. The office did not, for instance, obtain or examine servers or other relevant items belonging to these victims. The office understands that the FBI, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and the states have separately investigated that activity. By at least the summer of 2016, GRU officers sought to access the state and local computer networks by exploiting known software vulnerabilities on websites of state and local government entities. GRU officers, for example, targeted state and local databases of registered voters using a technique known as SQL injection, by which malicious code was sent to the state or local website in order to run commands such as exfiltrating the database contents. In one instance, in approximately June 2016, the GRU compromised the computer network of the Illinois State Board of Elections by exploiting a vulnerability in SQL's website. The GRU then gained access to a database containing information on millions of registered Illinois voters and extracted data related to thousands of U.S. voters before the malicious activity was identified. GRU officers redacted investigative technique, scanned state and local websites of more than 2 dozen states, redacted investigative technique. Unit 74455 also sent spear phishing emails to public officials involved in election administration and personnel involved in voting technology. In August 2016, GRU officers targeted employees of Redaction, Personal Privacy, a voting technology company that developed software used by numerous U.S. counties to manage voter rolls and installed malware on the company network. Similarly, in November 2016, GRU sent spear phishing emails to over 120 email accounts used by Florida county officials responsible for administering the 2016 U.S. election. The spear phishing emails contained an attached Word document coded with malicious software, commonly referred to as a Trojan, that permitted the GRU to access the infected computer. The FBI was separately responsible for this investigation. We understand the FBI believes that this operation enabled the GRU to gain access to the network of at least one Florida county government. The office did not independently verify that belief and, as explained above, did not undertake the investigative steps that would have been necessary to do so. Subsection D, Trump campaign and the dissemination of hacked materials. The Trump campaign showed interest in WikiLeaks released materials, hacked materials, through the summer and fall of 2016. Redaction, harm to ongoing matter. Subsection 1, redaction, harm to ongoing matter. Subsection A, background, redacted in entirety for harm to ongoing matter. Subsection B, contacts with the campaign about WikiLeaks. Redaction, harm to ongoing matter. 2 other instances of redaction to harm to ongoing matter. On June 12, 2016, Assange claimed in a televised interview to, quote, have emails relating to Hillary Clinton which are pending publication, end quote, but provided no additional context. In debriefings with the office, former Deputy Campaign Chairman Rick Gates said that redaction, who blocks for harm to ongoing matter. Gates recalled candidate Trump being generally frustrated that the Clinton emails had not been found. Paul Manafort, who would later become campaign chairman, redaction for harm to ongoing matter, with footnote 197 visible, read here. As explained further in Volume 1, Section 1B-A-8, Manafort entered into a plea agreement with our office. We determined that he breached the agreement by being untruthful in pro-armor sessions and before the grand jury. We have generally recounted his version of events in this report only when his statements are sufficiently corroborated to be trustworthy, to identify issues in which Manafort's untruthful responses may themselves be of evidentiary value, or to provide Manafort's explanations for certain events, even when we were unable to determine whether that explanation was credible. His accounts appear here principally because it aligns with those of other witnesses. And footnote, Michael Cohen, former executive vice president of the Trump Organization, as special counsel to Donald J. Trump, told the office that he recalled an incident in which he was a candidate Trump's office in Trump Tower, redaction, harm to ongoing matter. Cohen further told the office that after WikiLeaks' subsequent release of stolen emails in July 2016, candidate Trump said to Cohen something to the effect of redaction, harm to ongoing matter. According to Gates, by the late summer of 2016, the Trump campaign was planning a press strategy, a communications campaign, and messaging based on the possible release of Clinton emails by WikiLeaks. Redaction, harm to ongoing matter. While Trump and Gates were driving to LaGuardia Airport, redaction, harm to ongoing matter. Shortly after the call, candidate Trump told Gates that more releases of damaging information would be coming. Subsection C. 2 redactions for harm to ongoing matter. Corsi is an author who holds a doctorate in political science. In 2016, Corsi also worked for the media outlet World Net Daily. Redaction. Harm to ongoing matter. Corsi told the office during interviews that he must have previously discussed Assange with Moloch. Redaction. 2 instances of harm to ongoing matter, 1 redaction for grand jury. According to Malik, Corsi asked him to put Corsi in touch with Assange, whom Corsi wished to interview. Moloch recalled that Corsi also suggested that individuals in the orbit of UK politician Nigel Farage might be able to contact Assange and asked if Malik knew them. Malik told Corsi that he would think about the request, but made no actual attempt to connect Corsi with Assange. Redaction. 2 instances for harm to ongoing matter. Malik stated to investigators that beginning in or about August 2016, he and Corsi had multiple FaceTime discussions about WikiLeaks. Redaction. Harm to ongoing matter. Had made a connection to Assange and that the hacked emails of John Podesta would be released prior to Election Day and would be helpful to the Trump campaign. In one conversation in or around August or September 2016, Corsi told Malik that the release of the Podesta emails was coming, after which we were going to be in the driver's seat. The remainder of page 56 is redacted for harm to ongoing matter. Subsection D. WikiLeaks October 7, 2016 release of stolen Podesta emails. On October 7, 2016, 4 days after the Assange press conference, redaction, harm to ongoing matter, the Washington Post published an Access Hollywood video that captured comments by candidate Trump some years earlier and that was expected to adversely affect the campaign. Less than an hour after the video's publication, WikiLeaks released the first set of emails stolen by the GRU from the account of Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta. Follows is 5 blocks of redaction for harm to ongoing matter. Corsi said that because he had no direct means of communicating with WikiLeaks, he told members of the news site WNO, who were participating on a conference call with him that day, to reach Assange immediately. Corsi claimed that the pressure was enormous and recalled telling the conference call the Access Hollywood tape was coming. Corsi said that he was convinced that his efforts had caused WikiLeaks to release the emails when they did. In a later November 2018 interview, Corsi stated that he thought he had told people on a WND conference call about the forthcoming tape and had sent out a tweet asking whether anyone could contact Assange, but then said that maybe he had done nothing. The office investigated Corsi's allegations about the events of October 7th, but found little corroboration for his allegations about the day. Redaction of 2 blocks for harm to ongoing matter. However, the phone records themselves do not indicate that the conversation was with any of the reporters who broke the Access Hollywood story, and the office has not otherwise been able to identify the substance of the conversation. Redaction. Harm to ongoing matter. However, the office has not identified any conference call participant or anyone who spoke to Corsi that day who say that they received non-public information about the tape from Corsi or acknowledged having contacted a member of WikiLeaks on October 7, 2016 after a conversation with Corsi. Subsection E. Donald Trump Jr. interaction with WikiLeaks. Donald Trump Jr. had direct electronic communications with WikiLeaks during the campaign period. On September 20th, 2016, an individual named Jason Fishbein sent WikiLeaks the password for an unlaunched website focused on Trump's unprecedented and dangerous ties to Russia, PutinTrump.org. WikiLeaks publicly tweeted, quote, "Let's bomb Iraq. Progress for America pact to launch PutinTrump.org at 9:30 a.m. Oops, PW is Putin Trump, PutinTrump.org, end quote. Several hours later, WikiLeaks sent a Twitter direct message to Donald Trump Jr., quote, "A PAC-run anti-Trump site, PutinTrump.org, is about to launch. The PAC is a recycled pro-Iraq war PAC. We have guessed the password. It is Putin Trump. See about for who is behind it. Any comments?" End quote. Several hours later, Trump Jr. emailed a variety of senior campaign staff, quote, "Guys, I got a weird Twitter direct message from WikiLeaks. See below. I tried the password and it works. In the About section they reference contains the next pi in terms of who is behind it. Not sure if this is anything, but it seems like it's really WikiLeaks asking me as I follow them, and it is a DM." Do you know the people mentioned and what the conspiracy they are looking for could be? These are just screenshots, but it's a fully built out page claiming to be a fact. Let me know your thoughts and if you want to look into it. End quote. Trump Jr. attached a screenshot of the About page for the unlaunched site, PutinTrump.org. The next day, after the website had launched publicly, Trump Jr. sent a direct message to WikiLeaks. Quote, off the record, I don't know who that is, but I'll ask around. Thanks. Unquote. On October 3rd, 2016, WikiLeaks sent another direct message to Trump Jr. asking, you guys, to help disseminate a link alleging candidate Clinton had advocated using a drone to target Julian Assange. Trump Jr. responded that he already had done so and asked, quote, what's behind this Wednesday leak I keep reading about? End quote. WikiLeaks did not respond. On October 12th, 2016, WikiLeaks wrote again that it was, quote, great to see you and your dad talking about our publications. Strongly suggest your dad tweets this link and he mentions us. WLSearch.tk. End quote. WikiLeaks wrote that the link would help Trump in digging through leaked emails and stated, quote, we just released Podesta emails, part 4. End quote. 2 days later, Trump Jr. publicly tweeted the WLSearch.tk link. Subsection 2. Other potential campaign interest in Russian hacked materials. Throughout 2016, the Trump campaign expressed interest in Hillary Clinton's private email server and whether approximately 30,000 emails from that server had in fact been permanently destroyed, as reported by the media. Several individuals associated with the campaign were contacted in 2016 about various efforts to obtain the missing Clinton emails and other stolen material in support of the Trump campaign. Some of these contacts were met with skepticism, and nothing came of them. Others were pursued to some degree. The investigation did not find evidence that the Trump campaign recovered any such Clinton emails, or that these contacts were part of a coordinated effort between Russia and the Trump campaign. Subsection A. Henry Okoniansky, a.k.a. Henry Greenberg. In the spring of 2016, Trump campaign advisor Michael Caputo learned through a Florida-based Russian business partner that another Florida-based Russian, Henry Okoniansky, who also went by the name Henry Greenberg, claimed to have information pertaining to Hillary Clinton. Caputo notified Roger Stone and brokered communication between Stone and Okoniansky. Okoniansky and Stone set up a May 2016 in-person meeting. Okoniansky was accompanied to the meeting by Alexei Rasin, a Ukrainian associate involved in Florida real estate. At the meeting, Rasin offered to sell Stone derogatory information on Clinton that Rasin claimed to have obtained while working for Clinton. Rasin claimed to possess financial statements demonstrating Clinton's involvement in money laundering with Rasin's companies. According to Okoniansky, Stone asked if the amounts in question totaled millions of dollars, but was told it was closer to hundreds of thousands. Stone refused the offer, stating that Trump would not pay for opposition research. Okoniansky claimed to the office that Rasin's motivation was financial. According to Okoniansky, Rasin had tried unsuccessfully to shop the Clinton information around to other interested parties, and Okoniansky would receive a cut if the information was sold. Rasin is noted in public source documents as the director and or registered agent for a number of Florida companies, none of which appears to be connected to Clinton. The office found no other evidence that Rasin worked for Clinton or any Clinton-related entities. In their statements to investigators, Okoniansky and Caputo had contradictory recollections about the meeting. Okoniansky claimed that Caputo accompanied Stone to the meeting and provided an introduction, whereas Caputo did not tell us that he had attended and claimed that he was never told what information Okoniansky offered. Caputo also stated that he was unaware Okoniansky sought to be paid for the information until Stone informed him after the fact. The office did not locate Rasin in the United States, although the office confirmed Rasin had been issued a Florida driver's license. The office otherwise was unable to determine the content and origin of the information he purportedly offered to Stone. Finally, the investigation did not identify evidence of a connection between the outreach or the meeting and Russian interference efforts. Subsection B. Campaign efforts to obtain deleted Clinton emails. After candidate Trump stated on July 27, 2016, that he hoped Russia would, quote, find the 30,000 emails that are missing, end quote, Trump asked individuals affiliated with his campaign to find the deleted Clinton emails. Michael Flynn, who would later serve as National Security Advisor in the Trump administration, recalled that Trump made this request repeatedly, and Flynn subsequently contacted multiple people to obtain the emails. Barbara Leiden and Peter Smith were among the people contacted by Flynn. Leiden, a longtime Senate staffer who had previously sought the Clinton emails, provided updates to Flynn about her efforts throughout the summer of 2016. Smith, an investment advisor who was active in Republican politics, also attempted to locate and obtain the deleted Clinton emails. Leiden began her efforts to obtain the Clinton emails before Flynn's request as early as December 2015. On December 3, 2015, she emailed Smith a proposal to obtain the emails stating, quote, "Here's the proposal I briefly mentioned to you. The person I described to you would be happy to talk with you either in person or over the phone. The person can get the emails which, 1, were classified, and 2, were purloined by our enemies. That would demonstrate what needs to be demonstrated," end quote. Attached to the email was a 25-page proposal stating that the, quote, "Clinton email server was, in all likelihood, breached long ago, and that the Chinese, Russian, and Iranian intelligence services could reassemble the server's email content," end quote. The proposal called for a 3-phase approach. The first 2 phases consisted of open source analysis. The third phase consisted of checking with certain intelligence sources, quote, "that have access through liaison work with various foreign services to determine if any of those services had gotten to the server." The proposal noted, even if a single email was recovered and the provenance of the email was a foreign service, it would be catastrophic to the Clinton campaign, end quote. Smith forwarded the email to 2 colleagues and wrote, quote, "We can discuss to whom it should be referred," end quote. On December 16, 2015, Smith informed Leiden that he declined to participate in her initiative. According to one of Smith's business associates, Smith believed Leiden's initiative was not viable at that time. Just weeks after Trump's July 2016 request to find the Clinton emails, however, Smith tried to locate and obtain the emails himself. He created a company, raised tens of thousands of dollars, and recruited security experts and business associates. Smith made claims to others involved in the effort and those from whom he sought funding that he was in contact with hackers with ties and affiliations to Russia who had access to the emails and that his efforts were coordinated with the Trump campaign. On August 28, 2016, Smith sent an email from an encrypted account with the subject, "Secretary Clinton's unsecured private email server," to an undisclosed list of recipients, including campaign co-chairman Sam Clovis. The email stated that Smith was, quote, "just finishing 2 days of sensitive meetings here in D.C. with involved groups to poke and probe on the above. It is clear that the Clintons' home-based, unprotected server was hacked with ease by both state-related players and private mercenaries. Parties with varying interests are circling to release ahead of the election," end quote. On September 2, 2016, Smith directed a business associate to establish KLS Research, LLC, in furtherance of his search for the deleted Clinton emails. One of the purposes of KLS Research was to manage the funds Smith raised in support of his initiative. KLS Research received over $30,000 during the presidential campaign, although Smith represented that he raised even more money. Smith recruited multiple people for his initiative, including security experts, to search for and authenticate the emails. In early September 2016, as part of his recruitment and fundraising effort, Smith circulated a document stating that his initiative was in coordination with the Trump campaign, quote, "to the extent permitted as an independent expenditure organization," end quote. The document listed multiple individuals affiliated with the Trump campaign, including Flynn, Clovis, Bannon, and Kellyanne Conway. The investigation established that Smith communicated with at least Flynn and Clovis about his search for the deleted Clinton emails, but the office did not identify evidence that any of the listed individuals initiated or directed Smith's efforts. In September 2016, Smith and Leiden got back in touch with each other about their respective efforts. Leiden wrote to Smith, quote, "wondering if you had some more detailed reports or memos or other data you could share because we have come a long way in our efforts since we last visited. We would need as much technical discussion as possible so we could marry it against the new data we have found and then could share it back to you, your eyes only," end quote. Leiden claimed to have obtained a trove of emails from what she described as the dark web that purported to be the deleted Clinton emails. Leiden wanted to authenticate the emails and solicited contributions to fund that effort. Eric Prince provided funding to hire a tech advisor to ascertain the authenticity of the emails. According to Prince, the tech advisor determined that the emails were not authentic. A backup of Smith's computer contained 2 files that had been downloaded from WikiLeaks and that were originally attached to emails received by John Podesta. The file on Smith's computer had created dates of October 2nd, 2016, which was prior to the date of their release by WikiLeaks. Forensic examination, however, established that the creation date did not reflect when the files were downloaded to Smith's computer. It appears the creation date was when WikiLeaks staged the document for release, as discussed above. The investigation did not otherwise identify evidence that Smith obtained the files before their release by WikiLeaks. Smith continued to send emails to an undisclosed recipient list about Clinton's deleted emails until shortly before the election. For example, on October 28, 2016, Smith wrote that there was a, quote, hookup war going on within WikiLeaks over its planned releases in the next few days, and that WikiLeaks has maintained that it will save its best revelations for last, under the theory this allows little time for response prior to the U.S. election November 8th, end quote. An attachment to the email claimed that WikiLeaks would release all 33,000 deleted emails by November 1st. No emails obtained from Clinton's server were subsequently released. Smith drafted multiple emails stating or intimating that he was in contact with Russian hackers. For example, in one such email, Smith claimed that in August 2016, KLS Research had organized meetings with parties who had access to the deleted Clinton emails, including parties with, quote, ties and affiliations to Russia, end quote. The investigation did not identify evidence that any such meetings occurred. Associates and security experts who worked with Smith on the initiative did not believe that Smith was in contact with Russian hackers and were aware of no such connection. The investigation did not establish that Smith was in contact with Russian hackers or that Smith, Leadon, or other individuals in touch with the Trump campaign ultimately obtained the deleted Clinton emails. In sum, the investigation established that the GRU hacked into email accounts of persons affiliated with the Clinton campaign, as well as the computers of the DNC and DCCC. The GRU then exfiltrated data related to the 2016 election from these accounts and computers and disseminated that data through fictitious online personas, DC Leaks and Guccifer 2.0, and later through WikiLeaks. The investigation also established that the Trump campaign displayed interest in the WikiLeaks releases and that redaction harmed to ongoing matter. As explained in Volume 1, Section BB, further on, the evidence was sufficient to support computer intrusion and other charges against GRU officers for their role in election-related hacking. This section ends with redaction, harm to ongoing matter. End of Section 4. Read by Angelique G. Campbell, May 2019. Section 5 of Report on the Investigation into Russian Interference in the 2016 Presidential Election. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Angelique G. Campbell, May 2019. Report on the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election by Robert Mueller. Section 5. Russian government links to and contacts with the Trump campaign. The office identified multiple contacts, links, in the words of the appointment order, between Trump campaign officials and individuals with ties to the Russian government. The office investigated whether those contacts constituted a third avenue of attempted Russian interference with or influence on the 2016 presidential election. In particular, the investigation examined whether these contacts involved or resulted in coordination or conspiracy with the Trump campaign and Russia, including with respect to Russia providing assistance to the campaign in exchange for any sort of favorable treatment in the future. Based on the available information, the investigation did not establish such coordination. This section describes the principal links between the Trump campaign and individuals with ties to the Russian government, including some contacts with campaign officials or associates that have been publicly reported to involve Russian contacts. Each subsection begins with an overview of the Russian contact at issue and then describes in detail the relevant facts, which are generally presented in chronological order, beginning with the early months of the campaign and extending through the post-election transition period. Subsection A, campaign period, running from September 2015 to November the 8th, 2016. Russian government-connected individuals and media entities began showing interest in Trump's campaign in the months after he announced his candidacy in June 2015. Because Trump's status as a public figure at the time was attributable in large part to his prior business and entertainment dealings, this office investigated whether a business contact with Russian-linked individuals and entities during the campaign period, the Trump Tower Moscow project, led to or involved coordination of election assistance. Outreach from individuals with ties to Russia continued in the spring and summer of 2016 when Trump was moving toward and eventually becoming the Republican nominee for president. As set forth below, the office also evaluated a series of links during this period, outreach to two of Trump's then recently named foreign policy advisors, including a representation that Russia had dirt on Clinton in the form of thousands of emails, dealings with a DC-based think tank that specializes in Russia and has connections with its government, a meeting at Trump Tower between the campaign and a Russian lawyer promising dirt on candidate Clinton that was, quote, part of Russia and its government support for Trump, end quote. Events at the Republican National Convention, post-convention contacts between Trump campaign officials and Russia's ambassador to the United States, and contacts through campaign chairman Paul Manafort, who had previously worked for a Russian oligarch and a pro-Russian political party in Ukraine. Subsection 1, Trump Tower Moscow Project. The Trump Organization has pursued and completed projects outside the United States as part of its real estate portfolio. Some projects have involved the acquisition and ownership through subsidiary corporate structures of properties. In other cases, the Trump Organization has executed licensing deals with the real estate developers and management companies, often local to the country where the project was located. Between at least 2013 and 2016, the Trump Organization explored a similar licensing deal in Russia involving the construction of a Trump-branded property in Moscow. The project, commonly referred to as a Trump Tower Moscow or Trump Moscow project, anticipated a combination of commercial, hotel, and residential properties all within the same building. Between 2013 and June 2016, several employees of the Trump Organization, including then president of the organization, Donald J. Trump, pursued a Moscow deal with several Russian counterparties. From the fall of 2015 until the middle of 2016, Michael Cohen spearheaded the Trump Organization's pursuit of a Trump Tower Moscow project, including by reporting on the project's status to candidate Trump and other executives in the Trump Organization. Subsection A, Trump Tower Moscow venture with the Crocus Group in the years 2013 to 2014. The Trump Organization and the Crocus Group, a Russian real estate conglomerate owned and controlled by Aras Agalarov, began discussing a Russia-based real estate project shortly after the conclusion of the 2013 Miss Universe pageant in Moscow. Donald J. Trump Jr. served as the primary negotiator on behalf of the Trump Organization. Emin Agalarov and Irakli Ike Abruladze represented the Crocus Group during negotiations with the occasional assistance of Robert Goldstone. In December 2013, Abruladze and Trump Jr. negotiated and signed preliminary terms of an agreement for the Trump Tower Moscow project. On December 23, 2013, after discussions with Donald J. Trump, the Trump Organization agreed to accept an arrangement whereby the organization received a flat 3.5% commission on all sales, but no licensing fees or incentives. The parties negotiated a letter of intent during January and February 2014. From January 2014 through November 2014, the Trump Organization and Crocus Group discussed development plans for the Moscow project. Sometime before January 24, 2014, the Crocus Group sent the Trump Organization a proposal for an 800-unit, 194-meter building to be constructed on a Galarov-owned site in Moscow called Crocus City, which had also been the site of the Miss Universe pageant. In February 2014, Ivanka Trump met with Emin Agalarov and toured the Crocus City site during a visit to Moscow. From March 2014 through July 2014, the The group discussed design standards and other architectural elements. For example, in July 2014, members of the Trump Organization sent Crocus Group counterparties questions about the demographics of these prospective buyers in the Crocus City area, the development of neighboring parcels in Crocus City, and concepts for redesigning portions of the building. In August 2014, the Trump Organization requested specifications for a competing Marriott-branded tower being built in Crocus City. Beginning in September 2014, the Trump Organization stopped responding in a timely fashion to correspondence and proposals from the Crocus Group. Communications between the two groups continued through November 2014 with decreasing frequency. What appears to be the last communication is dated November 24, 2014. The project appears not to have developed past the planning stage and no construction occurred. Subsection B, communications with JC Expert Investment Company and George Ritz Heinitz, summer and fall 2015. In the late summer of 2015, the Trump Organization received a new inquiry about pursuing the Trump Tower project in Moscow. In approximately September 15th, Felix Sater, a New York-based real estate advisor, contacted Michael Cohen, then Executive Vice President of the Trump Organization and Special Counsel to Donald J. Trump. Sater had previously worked with the Trump Organization and advised it on a number of domestic and international projects. Sater had explored the possibility of a Trump Tower project in Moscow while working with the Trump Organization and therefore noted the organization's general interest in completing a deal there. Sater had also served as an informal agent of the Trump Organization in Moscow previously and had accompanied Ivanka Trump and Donald Trump Jr. to Moscow in the mid-2000s. Sater contacted Cohen on behalf of the IC Expert Investment Company, a Russian real estate development corporation controlled by Andrei Vladimirovich Rozov. Sater had known Rozov since approximately 2007, and in 2014 served as an agent on behalf of Rozov during Rozov's purchase of a building in New York City. Sater later contacted Rozov and proposed that IC Expert pursue a Trump Tower Moscow project in which IC Expert would license the name and brand from the Trump Organization but construct the building on its own. Sater worked on the deal with Rozov and another employee of IC Expert. Cohen was the only Trump Organization representative to negotiate directly with IC Experts or its agents. In approximately September 2015, Cohen obtained approval to negotiate with IC Expert from candidate Trump, who was then president of the Trump Organization. Cohen provided updates directly to Trump about the project throughout 2015 and into 2016, assuring him the project was continuing. Cohen also discussed the Trump Moscow project with Ivanka Trump as to design elements, such as possible architects to use for the project, and Donald J. Trump Jr. about his experience in Moscow and possible involvement in the project during the fall of 2015. Also during the fall of 2015, Cohen communicated about the Trump Tower proposal with George Ritz, a business executive who previously had been involved in the development deal with the Trump Organization in Batumi, Georgia. Cohen stated that he spoke to Ritzlitz in part because Ritzlitz had pursued business ventures in Moscow, including a licensing deal with the Lagarov-owned Crocus Group. On September 22, 2015, Cohen forwarded a preliminary design study for the Trump Moscow project to Ritzlitz, adding, quote, "I look forward to your reply about the spectacular project in Moscow," end quote. Ritzlitz forwarded Cohen's email to an associate and wrote, quote, "If we could organize the meeting in New York at the highest level of the Russian government and Mr. Trump, this project would definitely receive the worldwide attention," end quote. On September 24, 2015, Ritzlitz sent Cohen an attachment that he described as a proposed, quote, "letter to the mayor of Moscow from Trump Organization, explaining that we need to send this letter to the mayor of Moscow, second guy in Russia, who is aware of the potential project and will pledge his support," end quote. In a second email to Cohen sent the same day, Ritzlitz provided a translation of the letter, which described the Trump Moscow project as a, quote, "symbol of stronger economic, business, and cultural relationships between New York and Moscow, and therefore United States and the Russian Federation," end quote. On September 27, 2015, Ritzlitz sent another email to Cohen, proposing that the Trump Organization partner on the Trump Moscow project with Global Development Group, LLC, which he described as being controlled by Mikhail Pashkin, a Russian architect, and Simon Nazaradze, Cohen told the office that he ultimately declined the proposal and instead continued to work with the LC expert, the company represented by Felix Sater. Subsection C. Letter of intent and contacts to Russian government from October 2015 to January 2016. Trump signs the letter of intent on behalf of the Trump Organization. Between approximately October 13th, 2015 and November 2nd, 2015, the Trump Organization, through its subsidiary Trump Acquisition, LLC, and IC Expert, completed a letter of intent, LOI, for Trump Moscow property. The LOI, signed by Trump for the Trump Organization and Rozov on behalf of IC Expert, was intended to facilitate further discussions in order to attempt to enter into a mutually acceptable agreement related to the Trump-branded project in Moscow. The LOI contemplated a development with residential, hotel, commercial, and office components and asked for a quote, approximately 250 first-class luxury residential condominiums, as well as one first-class luxury hotel consisting of approximately 15 floors and containing not fewer than 150 hotel rooms, end quote. For the residential and commercial portions of the project, the Trump Organization would receive between 1% and 5% of all condominium sales, plus 3% of all rental and other revenue. For the project's hotel portion, the Trump Organization would receive a base fee of 3% of gross operating revenues for the first 5 years and 4% thereafter, plus a separate incentive fee of 20% of operating profit. Under the LOI, the Trump Organization also would receive $4 million upfront fee prior to groundbreaking. Under these terms, the Trump Organization stood to earn substantial sums over the lifetime of the project without assuming significant liabilities or financing commitments. On November 3rd, 2015, the day after the Trump Organization transmitted the LOI, Sater emailed Cohen suggesting that the Trump-Moscow project could be used to increase candidate Trump's chances of being elected, writing, quote, "Buddy, our boy can become president of the USA, and we can engineer it. I will get all of Putin's team to buy in on this. I will manage this process. Michael, Putin gets on stage with Donald for a ribbon cutting for Trump Moscow, and Donald owns the Republican nomination and possibly beats Hillary and our boy is in. We will manage this process better than anyone. You and I will get Donald and Vladimir on the stage together very shortly. That's the game changer," unquote. Later that day, Sater followed up, quote, "Donald doesn't stare down. He negotiates and understands the economic issues, and Putin only wants to deal with a pragmatic leader, and a successful businessman is a good candidate for someone who knows how to negotiate. Business, politics, whatever. It is all the same to someone who knows how to deal. I think I can get Putin to say that at the Trump Moscow press conference. If he says it, we own this election. America's most difficult adversary agreeing that Donald is a good guy to negotiate, we can own this election. Michael, my next steps are very sensitive with Putin's very, very close people. We can pull this off. Michael, let's go. 2 boys from Brooklyn getting a U.S. president elected. This is good. Really good," end quote. According to Cohen, he did not consider the political import of the Trump-Moscow project to the 2016 U.S. presidential election at the time. Cohen also did not recall candidate Trump or anyone affiliated with the Trump campaign discussing the political implications of the Trump-Moscow project with him. However, Cohen recalled conversations with Trump in which the candidate suggested that his campaign would be a significant infomercial for Trump-branded properties. Subsection 2. Post-LOI contacts with individuals in Russia. Given the size of the Trump-Moscow project, Sater and Cohen believed the project required approval, whether expressed or implicit, from the Russian national government, including from the presidential administration of Russia. Sater stated that he therefore began to contact the presidential administration through another Russian business contact. In early negotiations with the Trump Organization, Sater had alluded to the need for government approval and his attempts to set up meetings with Russian officials. On October 12, 2015, for example, Sater wrote to Cohen that, quote, "All we need is Putin on board and we are golden," and that a meeting with Putin and top deputy is tentatively set for the 14th of October, end quote. This meeting was being coordinated by associates in Russia and that he had no direct interaction with the Russian government. Approximately a month later, after the LOI had been signed, Lena Arkova emailed Ivanka Trump on behalf of Arakova's then-husband, Dmitry Klokov, to offer Klokov's assistance to the Trump campaign. Klokov was at that time Director of External Communications for PJSC, Federal Grid Company of Unified Energy System, a large Russian electricity transmission company, and had been previously employed as an aide and press secretary to Russia's energy minister. Ivanka Trump forwarded the email to Cohen. He told the office that, after receiving this inquiry, he had conducted an internet search for Klokov's name and concluded, incorrectly, that Klokov was a former Olympic weightlifter. Between November 8th and 19th, 2015, Klokov and Cohen had at least one telephone call and exchanged several emails, describing himself in emails to Cohen as a trusted person who could offer the campaign political synergy and synergy on a government level. Klokov recommended that Cohen travel to Russia to speak with him and an unidentified intermediary. Klokov said that those conversations could facilitate a later meeting in Russia between the candidate and an individual Klokov described as, quote, our person of interest, end quote. In an email to the office, Rokova later identified the person of interest as Russian President Vladimir Putin. In the telephone call and follow-on emails from Klokov, Cohen discussed his desire to use an near-time trip to Russia to do site surveys and talk about the Trump-Moscow project with local developers. Cohen registered his willingness also to meet with Klokov and the unidentified intermediary, but was emphatic that all the meetings in Russia involving him or candidate Trump, including a possible meeting between candidate Trump and Putin, would need to be, quote, in conjunction with the development and an official visit, end quote, with the Trump organization receiving a formal invitation to visit. Klokov had written previously that, quote, the visit by candidate Trump to Russia has to be informal, end quote. Klokov had also previously recommended to Cohen that he separate their negotiations over a possible meeting between Trump and the person of interest from any existing business track, re-emphasizing that his outreach was not done on behalf of any business. Klokov added in second email to Cohen that, if publicized well, such a meeting could have, quote, a phenomenal impact in a business dimension, and that the person of interest, most people would support, could have significant ramifications for the levels of projects and their capacity, end quote. Klokov concluded by telling Cohen that there was, quote, no bigger warranty in any project than the consent of the person of interest, end quote. Cohen rejected the proposal, saying that, quote, currently our LOI developer is sent off VP's chief of staff and arranging a formal invite the two to meet, end quote. This email appears to be their final exchange, and the investigation did not identify evidence that Cohen brought Klokov's initial offer of assistance to the campaign's attention, or that anyone associated with the Trump organization or the campaign dealt with Klokov at a later date. Cohen explained that he did not pursue the proposed meeting because he was already working on the Moscow project with Sater, who Cohen understood to have his own connections to the Russian government. By late December 2015, however, Cohen was complaining that Sater had not been able to use those connections to set up the promised meeting with Russian government officials. Cohen told Sater that he was setting up the meeting myself. On January 11th, 2016, Cohen emailed the office of Dmitry Peskov, the Russian government's press secretary, indicating that he desired contact with Sergei Ivanov, Putin's chief of staff. Cohen erroneously used an email address, so the email apparently did not go through. On January 14th, 2016, Cohen emailed a different address with the following message. Quote, Dear Mr. Peskov, over the past few months, I have been working with a company based in Russia regarding the development of a Trump Tower Moscow project in Moscow City. Without getting into lengthy specifics, the communication between our two sides has stalled. As this project is too important, I am hereby requesting your assistance. I respectfully request someone, preferably you, contact me so that I might discuss the specifics as well as arranging meetings with the appropriate individuals. I thank you in advance for your assistance and look forward to hearing from you soon. End quote. 2 days later, Cohen sent an email repeating his request to speak with Sergei Ivanov. Cohen testified to Congress and initially told the office that he did not recall receiving a response to this email inquiry and that he decided to terminate any further work on the Trump-Moscow project as of January 2016. Cohen later admitted that these statements were false. In fact, Cohen had received and recalled receiving a response to his inquiry, and he continued to work on and update candidate Trump on the project through as late as June 2016. On January 20th, 2016, Cohen received an email from Elena Polyakova, Peskov's personal assistant. Writing from her personal email account, Polyakova stated that she had been trying to reach Cohen and asked that he call her on the personal number that she provided. Shortly after receiving Polyakova's email, Cohen called and spoke to her for 20 minutes. Cohen described to Polyakova his position at the Trump Organization and outlined the proposed Trump-Moscow project, including information about the Russian counterparty with which the Trump Organization had partnered. Cohen requested assistance in moving the project forward, both in securing land to build the project and with financing. According to Cohen, Polyakova asked detailed questions and took notes, stating that she would need to follow up with the others in Russia. Cohen could not recall any direct follow-up from Polyakova or from any other representative of the Russian government, nor did the office identify any evidence of direct follow-up. However, the day after Cohen's call with Polyakova, Sater texted Cohen asking him to call me when you have a few minutes to chat. It's about Putin. They called today. Sater then sent a draft invitation for Cohen to visit Moscow to discuss the Trump-Moscow project, along with a note to tell me if the letter is good as amended by me, or make whatever changes you want and send it back to me. After a further round of edits on January 25th, 2016, Sater sent Cohen an invitation signed by Andrei Rabinensky of the company MHJ to travel to, quotes, Moscow for a working visit about the prospects of development and the construction business in Russia, the various land plots available suited for construction of this enormous tower, and the opportunity to coordinate a follow-up visit to Moscow by Mr. Donald Trump, end quote. According to Cohen, he elected not to travel at the time because of concerns about the lack of concrete proposals about land plots that could be considered as options for the project. Subsection D. Discussions about Russia travel by Michael Cohen or candidate Trump from December 2015 to June 2016. Sater's overtures to Cohen to travel to Russia. The late January communication was neither the first nor the last time that Cohen contemplated visiting Russia in pursuit of the Trump-Moscow project. Beginning in late 2015, Sater repeatedly tried to arrange for Cohen and candidate Trump, as representatives of the Trump Organization, to travel to Russia to meet with Russian government officials and possible financing partners. In June 2015, Sater sent Cohen a number of emails about logistics for traveling to Russia for meetings. On December 19, 2015, Sater wrote, quote, please call me. I have Avajay Novoskin on the other line. He needs a copy of yours and Donald's passports. They need a scan of every page of the passports. Invitations and visas will be issued this week by VTB Bank to discuss financing for Trump Tower Moscow. Politically, neither Putin's office nor Ministry of Foreign Affairs cannot issue invite, so they are inviting commercially business. VTB is Russia's second biggest bank, and VT Bank CEO Andrei Kostin will be at all meetings with Putin, so that it is a business meeting, not political. We will be invited to Russia consulate this week to receive invite and have visa issued, end quote. In response, Cohen texted Sater an image of his own passport. Cohen told the office that at one point he requested a copy of candidate Trump's passport from Rona Graff, Trump's executive assistant at the Trump Organization, and that Graff later brought Trump's passport to Cohen's office. The investigation did not, however, establish that the passport was forwarded to Sater. In the spring of 2016, Sater and Cohen continued to discuss a trip to Moscow in connection with the Trump-Moscow project. On April 20th, 2016, Sater wrote Cohen, quote, the people wanted to know when you were coming, end quote. On May 4th, 2016, Sater followed up, quote, I had a chat with Moscow, assuming the trip does happen. The question is before or after the convention. I said I believe, but don't know for sure, that it's probably after the convention. Obviously, the pre-meeting trip, you only, can happen at any time you want. With the two big guys with a question, I said I would confirm and revert. Let me know about if I was right by saying I believe after Cleveland, and also when you want to speak to them and possibly fly over, end quote. Cohen responded, my trip before Cleveland, Trump once he becomes the nominee after the convention. The day after this exchange, Sater tied Cohen's travel to Russia to the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, also known as Forum, an annual event attended by prominent Russian politicians and businessmen. Sater told the office that he was informed by a business associate that Peskov wanted to invite Cohen to the forum. On May 5th, 2016, Sater wrote to Cohen, quote, Peskov would like to invite you as his guest to the St. Petersburg Forum. which is Russia's Davos, is June 16th through 19th. He wants to meet there with you and to possibly introduce you to either Putin or Medvedev, as they are not sure if one or both will be there. This is perfect. The entire business class of Russia will be there as well. He said anything you want to discuss, including dates and subjects, are on the table to discuss. End quote. The following day, Sater asked Cohen to confirm those dates would work for him to travel. Cohen wrote back, "Works for me." On June 9th, 2016, Sater sent Cohen a notice that he, Sater, was completing the badges for the forum, adding, quote, "Putin is there on the 17th. Very strong chance you will meet him as well." End quote. On June 13th, 2016, Sater forwarded Cohen an invitation to the forum, signed by the director of the Ross Congress Foundation, the Russian entity organizing the forum. Sater also sent Cohen a Russian visa application and asked him to send 2 passport photos. According to Cohen, the invitation gave no indication that Peskov had been involved in inviting him. Cohen was concerned that Russian officials were not actually involved or were not interested in meeting with them, as Sater had alleged, and so he decided not to go to the forum. On June 14th, 2016, Cohen met Sater in the lobby of the Trump Tower in New York and informed him that he would not be traveling at this time. Subsection 2. Candidate Trump's opportunities to travel to Russia. The investigation identified evidence that, during the period the Trump-Moscow project was under consideration, the possibility of candidate Trump visiting Russia arose in 2 contexts. First, in interviews with the office, Cohen stated that he discussed the subject of traveling to Russia with Trump twice, once in late 2015 and again in spring 2016. According to Cohen, Trump indicated a willingness to travel if it would assist the project significantly. On one occasion, Trump told Cohen to speak with then-campaign manager Corey Lewandowski to coordinate the candidate's schedule. Cohen recalled that he spoke with Lewandowski, who suggested that they speak again when Cohen had actual dates to evaluate. Cohen indicated, however, that he knew that travel prior to the Republican National Convention would be impossible, given the candidate's pre-existing commitments to the campaign. Second, like Cohen, Trump received and turned down an invitation to the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. In late December 2015, Myra Duma, a contact of Ivanka Trump's from the fashion industry, first passed along invitations for Ivanka Trump and candidate Trump from Sergei Prokopko, a deputy prime minister of the Russian Federation. On January 14, 2016, Rhoda Graf sent an email to Duma stating that Trump was, quote, honored to be asked to participate in the highly prestigious forum event, but that he would have to decline the invitation given his very grueling and full travel schedule as a presidential candidate, end quote. Graf asked Duma whether she recommended that Graf, quote, send a formal note to the deputy prime minister, end quote, declining his invitation. Duma replied that a formal note would be great. It does not appear that Graf prepared that note immediately. According to written answers from President Trump, Graf received an email from Deputy Prime Minister Prokopko on March 17, 2016, again inviting Trump to participate in the 2016 forum in St. Petersburg. 2 weeks later, on March 31st, 2016, Graf prepared for Trump's signature a 10-paragraph letter declining the invitation. The letter stated that Trump's, quote, schedules have become extremely demanding because of the presidential campaign, that he already had several commitments in the United States for the time of the forum, and that he otherwise would have gladly given every consideration to attending such an important event, end quote. Graf forwarded the letter to another executive assistant at the Trump Organization with instructions to print the document on letterhead for Trump to sign. At approximately the same time that the letter was being prepared, Robert Forsman, a New York-based investment banker, began reaching out to Graf to secure an in-person meeting with candidate Trump. According to Forsman, he had been asked by Anton Gavyakov, a Russian presidential aide involved with the Ross Congress Foundation, to see if Trump could speak at the forum. Forsman first emailed Graf on March 31st, 2016, following a phone introduction brokered for Trump business associate Mark Burnett, who produced the television show The Apprentice. In his email, Forsman referenced his long-standing personal and professional expertise in Russia and Ukraine, his work setting up an early private channel between Vladimir Putin and former U.S. President George W. Bush, and an approach he had received from senior Kremlin officials about the candidate. Forsman asked Graf for a meeting with the candidate, or Lewandowski, or another relevant person, to discuss the agendas and other concrete things Borsman felt uncomfortable discussing over unsecure email. On April 4th, 2016, Rapp forwarded Borsman's meeting request to Jessica Makia, another executive assistant to Trump. With no response forthcoming, Borsman twice sent reminders to Rapp, first on April 26th and again on April 30th, 2016. Rapp sent an apology to Borsman and forwarded his April 26th email, as well as his initial March 26th email to Lewandowski. On May 2nd, 2016, Rapp forwarded Borman's April 30 email, which suggested an alternative meeting with Donald Trump Jr. or Ed Trump, so that Borsman could convey to them information that, quote, should be conveyed to the candidate personally or to someone the candidate absolutely trusts, end quote, to policy advisor Stephen Mueller. No communications or other evidence obtained by the office indicate that the Trump campaign learned that Borsman was reaching out to invite the candidate to the forum, or that the campaign otherwise followed up with Borsman until after the election, when he interacted with the transition team as he pursued a possible position in the incoming administration. When interviewed by the office, Borsman denied that the specific approach from senior Kremlin officials noted in his March 31st, 2016 email was anything other than Kavyakov's invitation to Ross Congress. According to Borsman, the concrete things he referenced in the same email were a combination of the invitation itself, Borsman's personal perspectives on the invitation, and Russia policy in general, and details of a Ukraine plan supported by a U.S. think tank, East-West Institute. Borsman told the office that Kavyakov had extended similar invitations through him to another Republican presidential candidate and one other politician. Borsman also said that Kavyakov had asked Borman to invite Trump to speak after that other presidential candidate withdrew from the race and the other politician's participation did not work out. Finally, Borsman claimed to have no plans to establish a back channel involving Trump, stating the reference to his involvement in the Bush-Putin back channel was meant to burnish his credentials to the campaign. Borsman commented that he had not recognized any of the experts announced as Trump's foreign policy team in March 2016 and wanted to secure an in-person meeting with the candidate to share his professional background and policy views, including that Trump should decline Kavyavka's invitation to speak at the forum. Subsection 2. George Papadopoulos. George Papadopoulos was a foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign from March 2016 to early October 2016. In late April 2016, Papadopoulos was told by London-based professor Joseph Mifsud, immediately after Mifsud's return from a trip to Moscow, that the Russian government had obtained dirt on candidate Clinton in the form of thousands of emails. 1 week later, on May 6, 2016, Papadopoulos suggested to a representative of a foreign government that the Trump campaign had received indications from the Russian government that he could assist the campaign through the anonymous release of information that would be damaging to candidate Clinton. Papadopoulos shared information about Russian dirt with people outside of the campaign, and the office investigated whether he also provided it to a campaign official. Papadopoulos and the campaign officials with whom he interacted told the office that they did not recall that Papadopoulos passed them the information. Throughout the relevant period of time and for several months thereafter, Papadopoulos worked with Mifsud and 2 Russian nationals to arrange a meeting between the campaign and the Russian government. That meeting never came to pass. Subsection A. Origins of campaign work. In March 2016, Papadopoulos became a foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign. As early as the summer of 2015, he had sought a role as a policy advisor to the campaign, but in a September 30, 2015 email, he was told that the campaign was not hiring policy advisors. In late 2015, Papadopoulos obtained a paid position on the campaign of Republican presidential candidate Ben Carson. Although Carson remained in the presidential race until early March 2016, Papadopoulos had stopped actively working for his campaign by early February 2016. At that time, Papadopoulos reached out to a contact at the London Center of International Law Practice, or LCILP, which billed itself as a, quote, unique institution comprising high-level professional international law practitioners dedicated to the advancement of global legal knowledge and the practice practice of international law, end quote. Papadopoulos said that he had finished his role with the Carson campaign and asked if LCILP was hiring. In early February, Papadopoulos agreed to join LCILP and arrived in London to begin work. As he was taking his position at LCILP, Papadopoulos contacted Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski via LinkedIn and emailed campaign official Michael Glassner about his interest in joining the Trump campaign. On March 2nd, 2016, Papadopoulos sent Glassner another message reiterating his interest. Glassner passed along word of Papadopoulos' interest to another campaign official, Joy Lutz, who notified Papadopoulos by email that she had been told by Glassner to introduce Papadopoulos to Sam Clovis, the Trump campaign's national co-chair and chief policy advisor. At the time of Papadopoulos' March 2nd email, the media was criticizing the Trump campaign for lack of experienced foreign policy or national security advisors within its ranks. To address that issue, senior campaign officials asked Clovis to put a foreign policy team together on short notice. After receiving Papadopoulos' name from Lutz, Clovis performed a Google search on Papadopoulos, learned that he had worked at the Hudson Institute, and believed that he had credibility on energy issues. On March 3rd, 2016, Clovis arranged to speak with Papadopoulos by phone to discuss Papadopoulos joining the campaign as a foreign policy advisor, and on March 6th, 2016, the two spoke. Papadopoulos recalled that Russia was mentioned as a topic, and he understood from the conversation that Russia would be an important aspect of the campaign's foreign policy. At the end of the conversation, Clovis offered Papadopoulos a role as policy advisor to the campaign, and Papadopoulos accepted the offer. Subsection B, initial Russia-related contacts. Approximately a week after signing on as a foreign policy advisor, Papadopoulos traveled to Rome, Italy, as part of his duties with LCILP. The purpose of the trip was to meet officials affiliated with Lincoln Campus University, a for-profit institution headed by a former Italian government official. During the visit, Papadopoulos was introduced to Joseph Mifsud. Mifsud is a Maltese national who worked as a professor at the London Academy of Diplomacy in London, England. Although Mifsud worked out of London and was also affiliated with LCILP, the encounter in Rome was the first time that Papadopoulos met him. Mifsud maintained various Russian contacts while living in London, as later discussed. Among his contacts was redaction, investigative technique, a one-time employee of the IRA, the entity that carried out the Russian social media campaign. In January and February 2016, Mifsud and redaction, investigative technique discussed possibly meeting in Russia. The investigation did not identify evidence of their meeting. Later, in the spring of 2016, redacted investigative technique was also in contact. Redacted investigative technique that was linked to an employee of the Russian Ministry of Defense, and that account had overlapping contacts with a group of Russian military-controlled Facebook accounts that included accounts used to promote DC Leaks releases in the course of the GRU's hack and release operations. According to Papadopoulos, Mifsud at first seemed uninterested in Papadopoulos when they met in Rome. After Papadopoulos informed Mifsud about his role in the Trump campaign, however, Mifsud appeared to take greater interest in Papadopoulos. The two discussed Mifsud's European and Russian contacts and had a general discussion about Russia. Mifsud also offered to introduce Papadopoulos to European leaders and others with contacts to the Russian government. Papadopoulos told the office that Mifsud's claim of substantial connections with Russian government officials interested Papadopoulos, who thought that such connections could increase his importance as a policy advisor to the Trump campaign. On March 17, 2016, Papadopoulos returned to London. 4 days later, candidate Trump publicly named him as a member of the Foreign Policy and National Security Advisory Team chaired by Senator Jeff Sessions, describing Papadopoulos as an oil and energy consultant and an excellent guy. On March 24, 2016, Papadopoulos met with Mifsud in London. Mifsud was accompanied by a Russian female named Olga Polanskaya. Mifsud introduced Polanskaya as a former student of his who had connections to Vladimir Putin. Papadopoulos understood at the time that Polanskaya may have been Putin's niece, but later learned that this was not true. During the meeting, Polanskaya offered to help Papadopoulos Papadopoulos established contacts in Russia and stated that the Russian ambassador in London was a friend of hers. Based on this interaction, Papadopoulos expected Mipsut and Polonskaya to introduce him to the Russian ambassador in London, but that did not occur. Following his meeting with Mipsut, Papadopoulos sent an email to members of the Trump campaign's Foreign Policy Advisory Team. The subject line of the message was "Meeting with Russian Leadership, including Putin." The message stated in pertinent part, quote, "I just finished a very productive lunch with a good friend of mine, Joseph Mipsut, the director of the London Academy of Diplomacy, who introduced me to both Putin's niece and the Russian ambassador in London, who also acts as the deputy foreign minister. The topic of the lunch was to arrange a meeting between us and the Russian leadership to discuss U.S.-Russia ties under President Trump. They're keen to host us in a neutral city or directly in Moscow. They said the leadership, including Putin, is ready to meet with us and Mr. Trump, should there be interest. Waiting for everyone's thoughts on moving forward with this very important issue," end quote. Papadopoulos' message came at a time when Clovis perceived a shift in the campaign's approach toward Russia, from one of engaging with Russia through the NATO framework and taking a strong stance on Russian aggression in Ukraine to redacted grand jury. Clovis's response to Papadopoulos, however, did not reflect that shift. Replying to Papadopoulos and other members of the Foreign Policy Advisory Team copied on the initial email, Clovis wrote, quote, "This is most informative. Let me work it through the campaign. No commitments until we see how this plays out. My thought is that we probably should not go forward with any meeting with the Russians until we have had occasion to sit with our NATO allies, especially France, Germany, and Great Britain. We need to reassure our allies that we are not going to advance anything with Russia until we have everyone on the same page. More thoughts later today. Great work," end quote. Subsection C. March 31, Foreign Policy Team Meeting. The campaign held a meeting of the Foreign Policy Advisory Team with Senator Sessions and candidate Trump approximately 1 week later on March 31, 2016 in Washington, D.C. The meeting, which was intended to generate press coverage for the campaign, took place at the Trump International Hotel. Papadopoulos flew to Washington for the event. At the meeting, Senator Sessions sat at one end of an oval table, while Trump sat at the other. As reflected in the photo included with the written report, which was posted to Trump's Instagram account, Papadopoulos sat between the two seats to Sessions' left. During the meeting, each of the newly announced foreign policy advisors introduced themselves and briefly described their areas of experience or expertise. Papadopoulos spoke about his previous work in the energy sector and then brought up a potential meeting with Russian officials. Specifically, Papadopoulos told the group that he had learned through his contacts in London that Putin wanted to meet with candidate Trump and that these connections could help arrange the meeting. Trump and Sessions both reacted to Papadopoulos' statement. Papadopoulos and campaign advisor J.D. Gordon, who told investigators in an interview that he had a crystal clear recollection of the meeting, have stated that Trump was interested in and receptive to the idea of a meeting with Putin. Papadopoulos understood Sessions to be similarly supportive of his efforts to arrange a meeting. Gordon and two other attendees, however, recalled that Sessions generally opposed the proposal, though they differ in their accounts of the concerns he voiced or the strength of the opposition he expressed. Subsection D. George Papadopoulos learns that Russia has dirt in the form of Clinton emails. Whatever Sessions' precise words at the March 31st meeting, Papadopoulos did not understand Sessions or anyone else in the Trump campaign to have directed that he refrain from making further efforts to arrange a meeting between the campaign and the Russian government. To the contrary, Papadopoulos told the office that he understood the campaign to be supportive of his efforts to arrange such a meeting. Accordingly, when he returned to London, Papadopoulos resumed those efforts. Throughout April 2016, Papadopoulos continued to correspond with, meet with, and seek Russia contacts through Mipsut and at times Polonskaya. For example, within a week of her initial March 24th meeting with him, Polonskaya attempted to send Papadopoulos a text message which email exchanges showed to have been drafted or edited by Mipsut, addressing Papadopoulos' wish to engage with the Russian Federation. When Papadopoulos learned from Mipsut that Polonskaya had tried to message him, he sent her an email seeking another meeting. Polonskaya responded the next day that she was, quotes, back in St. Petersburg, but would be very pleased to support Papadopoulos' initiatives between our two countries and to meet him again. End quote. Papadopoulos stated in reply that he thought, quotes, a good step would be to introduce him to the Russian ambassador in London, and that he would like to talk to the ambassador, or anyone else you recommend, about a potential foreign policy trip to Russia. End quotes. Mifsud, who had been copied on the email exchanges, replied on the morning of April 11th, 2016. He wrote, quotes, this has already been agreed. I am flying to Moscow on the 18th for a Valdai meeting, plus other meetings at the Duma. We will talk tomorrow. End quotes. The two bodies referenced by Mifsud are part of or associated with the Russian government. The Duma is a Russian legislative assembly, while Valdai refers to the Valdai Discussion Club, a Moscow-based group that is close to Russia's foreign policy establishment. Papadopoulos thanked Mifsud and said that he would see him tomorrow. For her part, Polanskaya responded that she had, quotes, already alerted my personal links to our conversation and your request, that we are all excited the possibility of a good relationship with Mr. Trump, and that the Russian Federation would love to welcome him once his candidature would be officially announced. End quotes. Papadopoulos' and Mifsud's mentions of seeing each other tomorrow referenced a meeting that the two had scheduled for the next morning, April 12, 2016, at the Andaz Hotel in London. Papadopoulos acknowledged the meeting during interviews with the office, and records from Papadopoulos' UK cell phone and his internet search history all indicated that a meeting took place. Following the meeting, Mifsud traveled as planned to Moscow. On April 18, 2016, while in Russia, Mifsud introduced Papadopoulos over email to Ivan Timofeyev, a member of the Russian International Affairs Council, or IAC. Mifsud had described Timofeyev as having connections with the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the executive entity in Russia responsible for Russian foreign relations. Over the next several weeks, Papadopoulos and Timofeyev had multiple conversations over Skype and email about setting the groundwork for a potential meeting between the campaign and Russian government officials. Papadopoulos told the office that, on one Skype call, he believed that his conversation with Timofeyev was being monitored or supervised by an unknown third party, because Timofeyev spoke in an official manner and Papadopoulos heard odd noises on the line. Timofeyev also told Papadopoulos in an April 25th that he had just spoken, quotes, to Igor Ivanov, the president of RIAC and former foreign minister of Russia, and conveyed Ivanov's advice about how best to arrange a Moscow visit, end quotes. After a stop in Rome, Mifsud returned to England on April 25th, 2016. The next day, Papadopoulos met Mifsud for breakfast at the Andaz Hotel, the same location as their last meeting. During that meeting, Mifsud told Papadopoulos that he had met with high-level Russian government officials during his recent trip to Moscow. Mifsud also said that, on the trip, he learned that the Russians had obtained dirt on candidate Hillary Clinton. As Papadopoulos later stated to the FBI, Mifsud said that the dirt was in the form of emails of Clinton and that they have thousands of emails. On May 6, 2016, 10 days after that meeting with Mifsud, Papadopoulos suggested to a representative of a foreign government that the Trump campaign had received indications from the Russian government that it could assist the campaign through the anonymous release of information that would be damaging to Hillary Clinton. Subsection E, Russia-related communications with the campaign. While he was discussing with his foreign contacts a potential meeting of campaign officials with Russian government officials, Papadopoulos kept campaign officials apprised of his efforts. On April 25th, 2016, the day before Mifsud told Papadopoulos about the emails, Papadopoulos wrote to senior policy advisor Stephen Miller that, quotes, the Russian government has an open invitation by Putin for Mr. Trump to meet him when he is ready, and that the advantages of being in London is that these governments tend to speak a bit more openly in neutral cities, end quotes. On April 27, 2016, after his meeting with Mifsud, Papadopoulos wrote a second message to Miller stating that, quote, some interesting messages were coming in from Moscow about a trip when the time is right, end quote. The same day, Papadopoulos sent a similar email to campaign manager Corey Lewandowski, telling Lewandowski that Papadopoulos had, quote, been receiving a lot of calls over the last month about Putin wanting to host Trump and the team when the time is right. End quote. Papadopoulos' Russian-related communications with campaign officials continued throughout the spring and summer of 2016. On May 4th, 2016, he forwarded to Lewandowski an email from Tel Aviv raising the possibility of a meeting in Moscow, asking Lewandowski whether that was something we want to move forward with. The next day, Papadopoulos forwarded the same Tel Aviv email to Sam Clovis, adding to the top of the email, Russia update. He included the same email in a May 21st, 2016 message to senior campaign official Paul Manafort under the subject line, request from Russia to meet Mr. Trump, stating that, quote, Russia has been eager to meet Mr. Trump for quite some time and have been reaching out to me to discuss. Manafort forwarded the message to another campaign official without including Papadopoulos and stated, quote, let's discuss. We need someone to communicate that Trump is not doing these trips. It should be someone low level in the campaign so as not to send any signal. End quote. On June 1st, 2016, Papadopoulos replied to an earlier email chain with Lewandowski about a Russia visit, asking if Lewandowski, quotes, wanted to have a call about this topic and whether we are following up with it. End quotes. After Lewandowski told Papadopoulos to, quotes, connect with Clovis because he was running point, Papadopoulos emailed Clovis that the Russian MFA was asking him if Mr. Trump is interested in visiting Russia at some point. End quotes. Papadopoulos wrote in an email that he, quotes, wanted to pass this information along to you for you to decide what's best to do with it, or what message I should send, or to ignore. End quotes. After several email and Skype exchanges with Tel Aviv, Papadopoulos sent one more email to Lewandowski on June 19, 2016, Lewandowski's last day as campaign manager. The email stated that the Russian Military of Foreign Affairs had contacted him and asked whether, if Mr. Trump could not travel to Russia, a campaign representative such as Papadopoulos could attend meetings. Papadopoulos told Lewandowski that he was, quote, willing to make the trip off the record if it's in the interest of Mr. Trump and the campaign to meet specific people. End quote. Following Lewandowski's departure from the campaign, Papadopoulos communicated with Clovis and Walid Perez, another member of the Foreign Policy Advisory Team, about an off-the-record meeting between the campaign and Russian government officials, or with Papadopoulos' other Russian connections, Mifsud and Tel Aviv. Papadopoulos also interacted directly with Clovis and Perez in connection with the summit of the Transatlantic Parliamentary Group on Counterterrorism, TAG, a group for which Perez was co-secretary general. On July 16, 2016, Papadopoulos attended the TAG summit in Washington, D.C., where he sat next to Clovis. Included within the document is a photo of this incident. Although Clovis claimed to have no recollection of attending the TAG summit, Papadopoulos remembered discussing Russia and a foreign policy trip with Clovis and Perez during the event. Papadopoulos' recollection is consistent with emails sent before and after the TAG summit. The pre-summit messages included a July 11, 2016 email in which Perez suggested meeting Papadopoulos the day after the summit to chat, and a July 12th message in the same chain in which Perez advised Papadopoulos that other summit attendees, quote, are very nervous about Russia, so be aware, end quote. 10 days after the summit, Papadopoulos sent an email to Mifsud listing Perez and Clovis as other participants in a potential meeting at the London Academy of Diplomacy. Finally, Papadopoulos' recollection is also consistent with handwritten notes from a journal that he kept at the time. Those notes appear to refer to potential September 2016 meetings in London with representatives of the Office of Putin, and suggest that Perez, Clovis, and Papadopoulos would attend without the official backing of the campaign. Quote, no official letter, no message from Trump. Additional Papadopoulos notes in fragmentary form are included with the report and are as follows. September. Have an exploratory meeting. In September, if allowed, they will blast Mr. Trump. We want the meeting in London, England. No official letter, no message from Trump. They are talking to us. It is a lot of risk. Office of Putin. Explore. We are a campaign. Willingness to meet with Sam Walid. Useful to have a session with him. End of Papadopoulos journal notes. Subsection F. Trump campaign knowledge of DART. Papadopoulos admitted telling at least one individual outside of the campaign, specifically the then Greek foreign minister, about Russia's obtaining Clinton-related emails. In addition, a different foreign government informed the FBI that 10 days after meeting with Mifsud in late April 2016, Papadopoulos suggested that the Trump campaign had received indications from the Russian government that it could assist the campaign through the anonymous release of information that would be damaging to Hillary Clinton. This conversation occurred after the GRU spearfished Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta and stole his emails, and the GRU hacked into the DCCC and DNC. Such disclosures raised questions about whether Papadopoulos informed any Trump campaign official about the emails. When interviewed, Papadopoulos and the campaign officials who interacted with him told the office that they could not recall Papadopoulos sharing the information that Russia had obtained DART from candidate Clinton in the form of emails, or that Russia could assist the campaign through the anonymous release of information about Clinton. Papadopoulos stated that he could not clearly recall having told anyone on the campaign and wavered about whether he accurately remembered an incident in which Clovis had been upset after hearing Papadopoulos tell Clovis that Papadopoulos thought that they have her emails. The campaign officials who interacted or corresponded with Papadopoulos have similarly stated, with varying degrees of certainty, that he did not tell them. Senior policy advisor Stephen Mueller, for example, did not remember hearing anything from Papadopoulos or Clovis about Russia having emails of or DART on candidate Clinton. Clovis stated that he did not recall anyone, including Papadopoulos, having given him non-public information that a foreign government might be in possession of material damaging to Hillary Clinton. Redaction. Grand jury. No documentary evidence and nothing in the email accounts or other communications reviewed by the office shows that Papadopoulos shared this information with the campaign. Subsection G. Additional George Papadopoulos contact. The office investigated another Russia-related contact with Papadopoulos. The office was not fully able to explore the contact because the individual at issue, Sergei Millian, remained out of the country since the inception of our investigation and declined to meet with members of the office despite our repeated efforts to obtain an interview. Papadopoulos first connected with Millian via LinkedIn on July 15, 2016, shortly after Papadopoulos had attended the TAG Summit with Clovis. Millian, an American citizen who is a native of Belarus, introduced himself as president of the New York-based Russian-American Chamber of Commerce, and claimed that through that position he had, quote, insider knowledge and direct access to the top hierarchy in Russian politics, end quote. Papadopoulos asked Tim Aviv whether he had heard of Millian. Although Tim Aviv said no, Papadopoulos met Millian in New York City. The meetings took place on July 30 and August 1, 2016. Afterwards, Millian invited Papadopoulos to attend and potentially speak at 2 international energy conferences, including one that was to be held in Moscow in September 2016. Papadopoulos ultimately did not attend either conference. On July 31, 2016, following his first in-person meeting with Millian, Papadopoulos emailed Trump campaign official Bo Denizig to say that he had been contacted, quotes, by some leaders of Russian-American voters here in the U.S. about their interest in voting for Mr. Trump, and asked whether he should put you in touch with their group, U.S.-Russia Chamber of Commerce, end quote. Denizig thanked Papadopoulos for taking the initiative, but asked him to hold off with outreach to Russian Americans because too many articles had already portrayed the campaign, then campaign chairman Paul Manafort, and candidate Trump as being pro-Russian, end quotes. On August 23, 2016, Millian sent a Facebook message to Papadopoulos promising that he would, quote, share with you a disruptive technology that might be instrumental in your political work for the campaign, end quote. Papadopoulos claimed to have no recollection of this matter. On November 9, 2016, shortly after the election, Papadopoulos arranged to meet Millian in Chicago to discuss business opportunities, including potential work with Russian, quote, billionaires who are not under sanctions, end quote. The meeting took place on November 14, 2016, at the Trump Hotel and Tower in Chicago. According to Papadopoulos, the two men discussed partnering on business deals, but Papadopoulos perceived that Millian's attitude toward him changed when Papadopoulos stated that he was only pursuing private sector opportunities and was not interested in a job in the administration. The two remained in contact, however, and had extended online discussions about possible business opportunities in Russia. The two also arranged to meet at a Washington, D.C. bar when both attended Trump's inauguration in late January 2017. End. Section 5. Read by Angelique G. Campbell. June 2019.
Well, that's the end of the two segments I'm going to do today, section 4 and 5. Do more. Not tomorrow, because I'm going to be with my friend tomorrow. But this gives me pause. Not the fact that Russia's invading or spying on us, because we knew that already. The fact that it was so easy to get into these emails that no one stopped it. These are the people in charge of our country, and they don't have OPSEC to stop a freaking catfish, Trojan horse. Gives me pause. Makes me worried about our country as a whole and cybersecurity. That's my issue. I mean, yeah, they shouldn't have the data, but still, they had connection to a candidate, and the president is the wife of an ex-president, and their OPSEC security wasn't good enough to stop a Trojan horse. Yeah, that's what I see wrong there. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of you can see where they didn't have as much pull as they think they did in Russia. You can see that with the way some of the emails. That and the fact that they were trying to pull Trump away, but you could still see with Papadopoulos and Eric or Don Jr. that they were still dealing with Russia, even though it wasn't official. But that's my takeaway from that segment. Unless you got anything else, I'll go ahead and shut down so we can take a break and get into either another Hens Live maybe, or get offline and get some meat. All right, not a problem. Thank you for showing up. Like, share, follow, of course, for later. I will post probably tomorrow once I find out if I'm going to have to do Wednesday and Thursday with my friend. But once I find that out, we'll see if I'll do an afternoon after that. Thank you, and bye.